Okay, well, welcome to our Q&A session. My name is Sophia. I am the executive editor for earthwords this year. And I just wanted to give a little short introduction to earthwords and Elsa. Starting off, earthwords is the oldest undergraduate literary magazine at the University of Iowa. And our mission is to showcase the best literary and artistic endeavors of students attending the University of Iowa, including poetry, fiction, nonfiction, drama, art, and photography. Our publication provides staff with the experience of producing a literary magazine in real time by ethically reading, selecting, and supporting the work and authors found in every issue. The Earthworks team is committed to broadening its accessibility, empowering our community, and promoting equity and justice for underrepresented voices. Although the team style and length change every year, Earthworks' dedication to promoting the diverse array of undergraduate creative works is a constant. So that's a little bit about us, and then I'll say a little bit about Elsa, and then we can move on. So Elsa Richardson-Bach is a 2023 alum of the University of Iowa who currently lives in New York. She works as an editorial assistant at the imprint Ballantine Bantam Dell of Penguin Random House. Elsa has been working as an editorial assistant for a year now. So let's give a warm welcome to Elsa.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, there's not much on on my bio. But you said you just kind of like go through my path of how I got here, because I think honestly that is sometimes the most helpful, especially when I've been trying to go through with my other friends about how I got here. But after graduating Iowa, I had an English and creative writing degree. And I went into Iowa very certain that I wanted to be a writer. I think as a lot of people do, and I do, of course, enjoy writing. But as I was doing the workshops, I realized that I really enjoy the editing and helping, my classmates make the best story that they can just as much as I did writing. So that's kind of when I moved onto the publishing track, and I was an editorial intern at the Iowa Review for nonfiction, and I was on Wilder Things magazine for 2 years, I think. Yeah, and then I graduated. And after I graduated, I went back home to my parents in Massachusetts, where I got a temporary job for like 6 months. At a software company where I wrote tweets for them. It was technically I was a content writer, which is basically a not as cool version of a tech writer. But it taught me a lot of useful skills. I'd be doing a lot of research about, they were a simulation software company, so they'd make little models of engines, and I'd be like, look at this cool thing. Um, and I think, it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do specifically. But I think that it definitely rounded out my perspective and my writing ability. I got used to doing things on a deadline, really small Instagram posts, tweets, figuring out how I can take this thing that, sorry, ComSol, is very boring, very, very boring, and make it interesting, to people who aren't necessarily looking for it. So I think it gave me a little bit of sales experience, which I think helped when I started applying to Penguin. I applied to a few different imprints. So this was not a like, I hit it out of the park on the first pitch. Like this, I got rejected from a few. I did not hear back from a lot. Like I just did not hear anything, which was, it's discouraging, but you'll get there, I guess is my point. But finally, Ballantine Bantam Dell, which is just such a mouthful. They responded, and I went through. Sorry, I think the heater just turned on. I was like, oh my God, I'm being abducted by aliens. No, so they finally responded, and I went through. I can go more into detail of exactly what the application process, like once my cover letter and resume kind of went in and the HR person reached out. I can go through what that process looked like if you would be interested, but I also don't want to fill everything up with that. But once I went through the kind of application assessment and got the job and quit my previous and moved here, okay, all right, then I will. It was terrifying. But I am by nature a nervous person, so I think that also is just part of being an English major. I think everyone has that. Um, and I think that's what they looked for. They're like, yes, you're a nervous English major. Let's do it. No, so I applied to a few different imprints at a time. I applied to Berkeley, I believe, Del Rey, and then Ballantine Bantam Dell, basically anywhere that was looking for an editorial assistant, like an entry-level position. And I heard back from HR and Blossom, really lovely. She was like, "Oh, we're interested in moving forward with you." I had no idea what imprint it was. So I was kind of guessing. And I went, "Yay! I'm so excited. What do you want from me? What do you need me to do?" And I believe she asked me first kind of what are your top five genres and your top 10 favorite books, which again feels like a simple question, but also feels like a trap, as do most interview things. But I kind of decided, I was like, I definitely want to be honest about my taste, but like if I were fully honest, it would just be Percy Jackson. Um, but so I definitely wanted to put in a mix of books I really did enjoy, my absolute favorites, but definitely more recent things. Because like I'm a classics. I really like old books that, cult classic type things. So I definitely wanted to put in more recent novels. And I think that helped to show that you're just up to date with the current market. So yeah, I sent in my favorite genres. I'm definitely a genre fiction girly. I like sci-fi, I love fantasy. Um, and after that went in, I think honestly that might have been something that they used to just figure out which imprint they wanted me to go to. I don't know. They did not tell me. But then they came back eventually and said like, yes, okay, we want to move you forward with Ballantine Bantam Dell. And I said, awesome. Now there's an imprint I can research. And so I looked into what kind of they did. It's a commercial imprint. So I kind of learned what they were looking for, kind of upmarket thrillers, things that you're going to bring on a beach read, book club books. This is not my office. I'm in my boss's office right now, and she has like The Maid, she has Andrea Bart's, that kind of thing, like the kind of books you want to see in people's hands as they're going through the airport. Um, and so I kind of, with that knowledge in mind, they set up an interview, I believe is what was next. No, it was not an interview. They sent me an application assessment. It happened so long ago and it was all a blur. They sent me an application assessment, which was a 100-page sample from two books. So 200 pages of reading, word pages, um, of two books. And they said, okay, you're going to give a reader's report on one. So kind of describe, give a quick summary of what's it about. Tell us where you think this fits in the market, who's the reader, what are comparison titles that you think this would fit in with. Um, and then for one of them, I had to pretend I was writing like copy. So pretend I was writing the description on the interior flap of the book. Um, and I had to decide if I would accept or like would I want to, include those in the Ballantine Bantam Dell list or reject them. And again, so many mind games. I was like, well, I can't accept both and I can't reject both. But so it's definitely nerve-wracking. But I think you have to go with your gut. I read both samples. I really liked one. One I was kind of not so jazzed about. And I said that. I said, okay, this one is really charming. I was immediately taken by the voice. I think this fits in with like people who love the rom-coms with kind of a quirky narrator, and I gave examples. And then the other one was a thriller, and it was fine. But I said, this isn't, my thing. So I do think since it's not particularly standing out to me, maybe it wouldn't be the best choice for our list. And I passed on it. And I sent that in. It was technically, I think, something that is definitely helpful. I was not given a timeline. Like I got it Tuesday, I believe, the assessment, and it was due Monday. Um, and I know some of my other colleagues, they were given a shorter time limit, but I was given a lot of time. But I turned it in Thursday, I think. So being able to give a very quick turnaround, as much as is within your bandwidth is extremely helpful because a lot of times, sometimes we'll get submissions in and the agents won't hound us for like a week. And then sometimes the very next day they're saying, "Hey, like, have you read it yet? Have you read this gigantic novel yet?" So just kind of being able to read very quickly and give an assertive assessment is very helpful. So if you get those assessments, I definitely recommend, making sure taking your time with them, but also, turning them in as fast as possible. And so after that, they liked me, and I got an interview with who my now managers, Julian Pavia and Hillary Tiemann. And they are both editors, executive editors here, and I was interviewing to be their assistant. So this interview was definitely, it was a vibe check to make sure we kind of gelled with each other. And also to talk more about the assessment, where my thoughts were, what I like reading, and then, the classic of any job interview, which is like, how do you organize yourself? Like, how would you handle getting 50,000 emails a day? Um, and just kind of, I tried to be as honest as possible, which is that, yeah, my desk looks a little bit messy, but it makes sense to me, and I am able, I definitely organize my emails. I put things in alphabetical order, like all the kind of boring things. And then they were just asking about what kind of reader I was, what I would like to read. And I said science fiction is where I'm at, which was great because Julian does science fiction. He's the editor of The Martian. Um, yeah, which was super intimidating. I Googled these people and I was like, well, what if I just jumped into the river? But no, they are so down to earth, so wonderful. Um, no egos at all, which was great because I went in there shaking like a chihuahua. Um, and so yeah, it was very nerve-wracking, but also just such a wonderful experience because if you're from what I've learned about my coworkers, the other editors I work with, is that like we're all just nerds. We all just really love books. And if you do love books, if you love talking about books, discussing them, you want to bring books into the world, then that's your place here and it will show. Um, so yeah, I really gelled with them. I liked them a lot. I really liked their respective lists. I said, "Oh man, I love that book." And after that, I got an interview with Jennifer Hershey, who is the publisher, the head publisher of the imprint. And that was mainly a vibe check. Like she didn't ask me anything about, we ended up talking about Red Dead Redemption and how her daughter plays Red Dead Redemption. So it was very low stakes. It was definitely a kind of, is this person going to fit in with our community kind of thing. So it's definitely about your skill set, I think, and that is very important. You should highlight that in a cover letter, definitely. But it's also just really about your love for books and your love for media and storytelling and just how much you can communicate with people and your desire to do that. So that's definitely what I think editorial is about and what I think helped me get here is that like definitely making sure your resume looks super polished, but also just trying to be as honest as you can about what you love and love to read because you don't want to end up, if I interviewed with someone and they were reading nonfiction about bugs, like I am desperate for a job, but I'm not going to enjoy it. And, the people, the authors, they're going to understand that. They're going to feel the lack of energy. So you really want to be, this wasn't my first imprint. I was like, if I could get on Del Rey, that would be great. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. So you're not necessarily going to get your very first choice, and you don't want to be picky, but you also want to be somewhere where you can definitely say that you're proud of the books you're producing and what you're putting out and what you're working with. So it's a mix of being fancy on your resume, but also just being as honest as you can about the books you love. So yeah, now I'm here.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for going so in depth into that process.
I
I know,
think it's so mysterious. Anytime someone tells you how they got their job, they're just like, "Oh, I put in a cover letter." No, it's a very long and terrifying process, but it's worth it and it's good.
yeah, no, for sure. That was like super helpful for me. I know I'm starting to apply for stuff and that's very nice to know
Good luck.
what things are going to look like. But does anyone have any questions for Elsa right now?
Yeah, I have a question. Hang on, I have it written down 1 second.
I love your earrings.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, I was just wondering what your like average day looks like from, just, you know, average workload, average getting up and heading into your job.
For sure, absolutely. That is what I asked in my interview, and there's unfortunately no direct answer because the problem is it varies day by day because you are working with different authors and different books, and each one kind of requires a different touch. And publishing works in sort of waves, which I did not know. Some of you may be smarter than me and know this, but I didn't know. So there are like, we have spans. So it's just kind of like a season for books. And you have, I should know this, no, spring, summer, and then fall. And fall is really weird because it goes from like October to January. There's no winter. They love being evil and confusing us. But during those spans, you have all the books that are coming out within that period of months, so October through January. Um, and you want to put in a book like all the cozy fall books, those are coming out in fall, obviously. And so all those books are together, and within each span, we have deadlines where it's like, okay, for all of these books that are coming out in this period of 3 or 4 months, we need things called TIs, which are title information sheets, and they're these things that you give to sales that tells you all about the book, and then kind of why customers want to buy this book, what are the comparison titles, all that sort of stuff. So everything will be chill. You'll be having a grand old time reading some submissions, and then you get the notification that TIs are due in a week, and you're like, oh, cool. And then your life becomes TIs for the next week or two. Um, so a lot of it comes in waves like that. So there's no really average day to day. But the closest I can give is I work in New York. I was not clear. I live in New Jersey. I live in Jersey City, which is close enough. Except when you have to make the commute, then it's not as great. But no. I live in New Jersey and I make the commute 2 or 3 times a week. I'm hybrid, so I can work from home on Mondays and Fridays because I do not want to get up early on Monday. So I make the commute to the office. I get here and well, I'll just go through a Tuesday because that's actually a fairly standard day. That's when everyone is in office because we have our big editorial board meeting. So I come in. I get settled. I look at my emails. There are sometimes just very standard things from marketing that are saying, "Hey, this book just got like a new review from Kirkus or whatever." And you're like, "Yay, huzzah!" Like send it to the author. And then sometimes it's an author going like, "Oh my God, I found a typo. We're gonna die." Like, and you're like, "Okay, we can either put that in for reprints if the book's already published, or we can like, it's good. We have not sent it to print yet. We can all calm down." Um, and so once I've sorted through those, I kind of check in with my bosses who are both here. I say, "Hey, is there anything I should prioritize today?" Like for instance, today I went over with Hillary a contract. So I am not in charge of writing the contracts themselves because that would be a nightmare. But I am in charge of actually putting in all the information, plugging in all the information into a database so that the legal side of things can actually make the contract. So I put in like, what's the book's title? Who's the author? Who's the agent? When is it coming out? What's the word count? So I went over that with Hillary today for these new books that are, we just bought, so that I can start drafting that contract information tomorrow. And then we had editorial meeting at 11. So we all went into a big fancy conference room that makes me feel like I should be wearing a suit, but I'm not. Um, and it's really, really low key. Like we're definitely being official, but it's very low key, very calm. We go around and we see, okay, like what's on sale today? Does anyone have any books that are out? And we all do a little clap. And then what are any new, well, we catch up on whatever projects were mentioned in the last meeting. So like, oh, one of our romance editors had in a romance about cowboys, and how's that doing? And it can be kind of like, okay, I really enjoyed it, but it's getting interest from like another imprint, so we're gonna go to auction or something where the imprints start fighting over who gets a book. It's a lot of it is like eBay, which is terrifying. Like, when a book gets when multiple imprints want a book, they start bidding on it, and there's an actual auction for it, which I did not know. I was like, oh. Um, and then sometimes it'll be like, oh, agent isn't really pushing for this, so we have a little more time to prioritize other things that might be moving faster. And so after we catch up on all those projects, we go around in a circle with each editor that says, yeah, I have something new in. I have this cool, sci-fi story about a spaceship that's actually sentient. And like, um, I'm liking the voice. I'm about like 150 pages in. Is anyone else interested in reading this with me? To give me kind of a second look. We're definitely, every imprint's a little bit different. I've tried talking with other editorial assistants that say, hey, like my editorial meeting doesn't work precisely like this. Sometimes people prefer you to read the whole book and then share it, but my imprint is we definitely like to work together. We like to see what other people's thoughts are as we're working. So a lot of times someone won't finish a manuscript before they're sending it around for second reads. We kind of talk about it. They say, you'll get other people's opinions on where do you think the book should go? Where do you think it places in the market? Are we excited about it? Um, and then you take it to the next meeting or you take it to the agent and keep going with that. So after ed meeting, it's really nice because you always come out there like, oh my gosh, we are putting new books into the world. Like we are getting these. So it's very exciting. I love Tuesdays. And then afterwards, it's more emails. It's a lot of emails, but all of the emails are different because sometimes it's an author panicking about a typo. Sometimes it's an author saying, hey, I have my next draft ready, and here is a big Word document. And that's exciting because you have a new draft to read. And then sometimes it's an agent saying, like, can we have the final PDFs for this book that is coming out? And we want them because we're the agent. And you have that relationship and you kind of go, okay, let me pull those for you. So it's my job to go find the final PDFs and send them to the agent, make sure everything's in order. I'm also in charge of, like today, I had to do what we call a transmittal, which is when we have the final draft from the author, everything is good to go. I format the manuscript in a very specific way. Like I put in the front matter, which is the title page, the dedication, the copyright page. I format that. I send it into production along with like formal sheets about copyright and all that sort of stuff. I send it into production and then they set it up with a copy editor and they send the copy edit to me and I send it to the author and then the author sends it back. So it's a lot of back and forth. As an assistant, I am doing a lot of conduit work. But it really gets you into the nitty gritty areas of publishing that I had absolutely no idea about. Like I didn't know. I mean, if you think about it, of course, someone needs to transmit the book, but it just did not occur to me that I would be that person or how it would happen. So being in that kind of middle ground is definitely it's different every day and it's very exciting. But I will say, because I was wondering this the day I started. I'm like, when will I start to be able to have my own books? I do not have my own book yet, but um it's kind of it's an option. Like I have gotten a few things from agents sent to me and they're like, "Hey, are you interested in this?" And I've read it and they haven't worked out. But it's definitely a process that I and my superiors are encouraging me to be involved in. So I'm also part of the acquisitions process, both for myself and for my editors. When Hillary or Julian wants something, they will come to me and say, well, they'll give me the manuscript. They'll say, hey, what do you think of this? And I go, it's amazing. You have a wonderful eye because they do. Um, and then I'm the one in charge of pulling like numbers for titles that I'm trying to think of an example that isn't like confidential. Not that it's super top secret. But like if a new author, if a say Andy Weir, right? Andy Weir is writing another book and we're like, "Oh my gosh, we want to buy it." Um, I go in, I pull the data from his past books. I go, "Okay, what did these sell? How much money did we make? What can we look and kind of learn from this?" And I put them into what we call an acquisitions memo, which is saying like bidding strategy. This is how much we want to pay for it. This is who it's like, who the agent is. This is what the book is about. These are the rights territories. And then these are possible sales, like sales comparisons of books that we think will do, books that we think this book will do the same as. So it's like a lot. Sometimes you're part of acquisitions, sometimes you are just putting out little fires on email every day, and then sometimes you are transmitting books. Sometimes you hole yourself up, you say you put yourself on do not disturb and you work on a draft from an author that sends you in. They say, "Hey, this is my first draft." And you go, "Oh my gosh, there are so many typos." No, it's never that bad. But you definitely like you want to devote time to sit down and edit, and that definitely happens. But what I didn't fully realize is how much not editing my job is. I definitely get to do editing, and that is why I love being here. But that is not my average day. My average day is not curling up in a little comfy chair with some tea and reading a book, which I kind of wish it was. But no. So that is kind of a non-answer. I hope that was helpful because the unfortunate thing is that it looks different every single day.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate all that, all those insights. It sounds like such like I just love that it changes every day. That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, never
Mhm.
never a dull moment, which is good because I get like I think that is what really drove me insane about my past job is that I was doing the same thing every day. And here it gets hectic, but it's a fun hectic.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. I know I've heard from I've heard from a few different people that it's just like about how editorial is more of like just a lot going on. Um,
Mhm.
a follow-up question I kind of had was, I've heard that like you a lot of times when you're an editorial assistant, you have to spend a lot of time outside the office doing reading drafts and stuff like that. Has that been your experience, or like how is your outside of work hours been?
I definitely did not have a work-life balance when I first started. I was like, if I am not working every second of every day, they are going to call me a fake book fan and kick me out. That is not true. Um, but a lot of it is definitely, so for instance, I did, right now, I'm working for two editors that have very demanding lists. You know, Hillary has many, many books, and Julian has a lot of books that are being put into movies or doing all this stuff that I have to handle all the moving parts for. So that definitely takes up my main work day. And then sometimes I'll be reading a draft with both of them, or well, one of them. And kind of giving my thoughts alongside theirs when we work with an author. So my work day is mainly focused on them and assisting them and learning from them. Now that I am really looking to form my own list and hopefully get a book, all that kind of reading for something that I would want to acquire is done in outside of work hours. Like whenever I get a submission in from an agent, which I love how that makes me sound as though I'm just swimming in submissions. I'm not. It takes a very long time. You have to do a lot of networking. You just gotta put yourself out there, which I'm not super great at, but you gotta do it. The networking is important. But when I get something that I'm interested in and I want to take my time with it, that is read on in my after hours outside of work. I found that like, I mean, I don't know what anyone else's commute will look like, but I'm on the train for a solid half hour each way, but it's a great time that I just sit and I read. So it's really great that I have like I'll get a chunk of reading done that would have been done at home. So I will say the personal reading, if you when you want to grow as an assistant, your own career, alongside these, executive editors that you're assisting, a lot of that is initially done outside of work hours. It also depends on who you work for. One of my friends that is working for a different editor, she has a lot of time to read during work hours, but she also has to do a lot of stuff that I don't. She works for the oh God, what is she? The president? Not the president. One of the editors in chiefs. There's like I call them the High Council. There's like three people that are really cool, but also intimidating with how good they are. She just works for one editor, but that editor is also doing a lot of stuff for the rest of the imprint. So like she has to schedule meetings for that editor. Meanwhile, I don't have to do that as often for like Hillary prefers to schedule her own meetings, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a trade-off. Like I get a lot of editing done in ways that someone with a different editor might not, but I also have to do a lot of my reading for, my personal career advancement that someone else might have time to do during work hours. And it's also definitely, I'm not great at advocating for work-life balance. My editors, they are checking in with me. They're like, "What's your workload?" And I'm better now, but the first few months, I'd be like, "I can take anything. Like, go on. Just like send everything you have my way." And I quickly realized I could not do that. So it's kind of, and I believe this is actually really funny. I love telling this story. In my interview with Julian and Hillary, at the end of it, Julian said, "You don't want this job." And I said, "What?" I said, "Huh?" And he said, "This industry, because publishing is an industry as much as we all wish it was just wonderful books, reading, um, it will take everything you're willing to give. So if you are willing to put in, 6 hours outside of your work hours, if you are willing to read until 1 a.m., you can and you will, and I've done that. And it might get you forward. Like maybe if I spent every night reading until 1 a.m., I'd find the perfect book. But then I'd also just not be a functioning human in the morning. So it's definitely one of those things where it's true. It will take what you're willing to give, and you have to find that balance that is okay with you. And if the balance is that you don't want to do any reading outside of work, then you might find that the people next to you who are, doing these insane readings outside of work will find a book faster than you or something. But it's all just about what works best for you and what you want your list to look like, the books you cultivate. Um, which it took me a little bit to understand that because again, I had no work-life balance and I was that person just, burning the candle at both ends. But I've definitely pulled back. I say, no, I want my weekend to be where I read for fun or where I don't do any reading, or I just play video games or I go outside and touch grass. But yeah, it just really it is what you make of it because if you're willing to give everything, it will take everything. So you just need to be careful because it's very easy to become the workaholic in a rom-com. And unfortunately, there is no hot love interest to make sure you don't overwork yourself, as I've found out. But yeah, so the workload is um, very much you have to advocate for yourself and your workload. It is something that you have to be very firm about. And I was not always good at that. I'm getting better. I am still definitely working on it. But you going in, it's going to be like a landslide. You're going to think that you have to do everything or you're going to get fired. You're not. Everyone really here just wants you to be healthy and happy and reading books.
That is very helpful for me to know. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
I'm glad.
Does anyone else have other questions for Elsa? If not, I can keep going with questions, but I'd like to open up the floor.
Well, if you don't mind, I have a question for you, Elsa.
Yeah, for sure.
So, prior to getting this job, have you had any other publishing related positions?
I mean, other than my Lit Mag experience, no. Which is something I find it is a little bit interesting because, I have a friend that works on the floor below me, and she had had a internship throughout college at every single Big Five publisher. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have that. I'm gonna die in a hole. I'm never gonna break into publishing when someone who is just that fantastically experienced exists, and so many other people like that exist. So I was definitely worried that my lack of experience would mean that I'd never get to sit here. But I think it can work both ways. Your experience can help you. It absolutely helped her. It meant she, went into this job and said, yes, I know what I'm doing. She's in sales. I know what I'm doing. I want to move forward. I can definitely help you. Like she definitely started at an advantage, knowing where she was and fit right in. And that's fantastic. Um, but I also think that the fact that I hadn't had as much publishing experience, I was an intern at a small magazine and then I was working at a lit mag. And but also while I was here, during the summers, I would be a barista at a coffee shop, which taught me how to talk to people. And, a lot of times I would be recommending books to them. I would be talking about books, even if I was not working with books. And while I was at Iowa, I was also a docent manager at the Pentacrest Museums. So that was talking, like, that's not anything to do with publishing at all, but I'd give tours about a giant sloth to people. And so retaining that information, being able to kind of alter it to fit whatever tour group I'm giving it to, that taught me how to deliver to an audience, which is an incredibly important part of editorial, is figuring out how do I get this book to people who are going to care about it. And then my job at the software company was very technical, but it meant I had to follow very rigid deadlines. I had to write boring things that I didn't necessarily want to write, which here I love my job. I will stay here. There are some things that I get up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to write this email. But because you have experience in doing things you don't necessarily want to do, I can kind of chug through it. So I think that all of those different things that I did that weren't necessarily direct publishing experience still gave me experience that helped me get here. And if you can, I don't want to say spin it, because spin it implies that that's not the way it actually is. It is, having outside experience is very helpful. And if you can just portray it that way and really let the people you're interviewing with and where you want to be, let them know that this outside experience and the fact it's still experience, regardless of what you've done. Um, all of it is experience, even if it's not traditional or like an internship or something super fancy. So I really think that whether you have experience or not, it's really uh like technical experience, as in have you worked with publishing before? I think it's helpful, but it's not necessary. And if you don't have a ton of publishing experience, don't give up. Like just truly, I don't want to say lie, but lie. Like, tell this wonderful story. You're in books, you want to be able to tell stories. Tell a story of how all your experiences got you to where you are today and how it can help you work where you want to be. Because it's true, even if you didn't work in at like Macmillan or something. Even if you didn't do that and you don't have that direct experience, you still have lived experience that makes you love books, and that still matters and can push you forward. So anyone out there, if you have a lot of experience, hell yeah, you're going to do great. And if you don't have a lot of, direct publishing experience, you're still going to do great. So I don't want to say don't worry about it, because I know better than anyone you're going to worry about it all the time, constantly. But it's not something that's going to hold you back indefinitely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hopefully that helped.
I'd say it did.
Yay.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Jason. Um, does anyone else have any other questions for Elsa?
I'm obsessed with the ghost painting behind you. Sorry, not to...
Thanks. I actually made it.
Incredible. Everyone
Me,
celebrate the ghosts.
me and my friends, one of my friends had we did a sip and paint thing last year for her birthday,
Incredible.
and so we did this while drinking wine, and it was so fun.
That sounds amazing, and I love it.
It's so cute.
Thank you. Well, if no one else has other questions right now, I wanted to ask, I like have I've spent a lot of time tailoring my cover letters to
Yes.
particular jobs and stuff, and I always am trying to find like this balance between telling a story and also fitting in enough information that makes me like show my passion for books and also show my experience without repeating my resume. And I don't know, sometimes it feels like a toss up because I've gotten some interviews, but then I didn't end up getting the position. And I don't know, it's like how how do you go about writing a cover letter, and what about your cover letter that got you this job do you think stood out to the hiring people?
Yeah, for sure. That is always the wretched dilemma. I think with my cover letter, I am the rest of my family, so my parents and my brother are all like STEM. My brother's a geologist. He was initially a mechanical engineer, and my parents were both aerospace engineers. So they're very like engineer gear brained, and I'm like, I want to tell stories about dragons. So my cover letter was definitely absolutely story focused, and I struggled to talk about myself because I didn't want to seem like I was bragging. I didn't want to be like, yes, I've done this. But that's what you got to do. That is what a cover letter is. It is bragging, and it is about telling a story. But how I found that, so I would constantly, like, I had my parents read my cover letter. Um, and they'd be like, you got to describe every single little thing you did at your job. And I'm like, okay. But what I found in a balance there is that the it's a story and it's a story about your skills and what you can do. So I found that the most poetic I'd ever get with it would be the opening paragraph about like, I love your imprint. I love your books. This is well, for Del Rey, my opening paragraph was saying, hey, I absolutely adore one of your authors. I've loved her since high school, which is Kirsten White, because I read The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein and lost my mind. And, I've been reading her ever since into her adult space. So that was kind of my story there. That's how I opened it up. And I said, like, what I love about her books is that she puts a new spin on these stories that you think you know so well. Like that's why I loved The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. It was this story that I had never thought of before and a new way of looking at things. And so that was my in the first paragraph. And then the next two or three or however many where I described, like my main jobs, the things I was most proud of and the things I thought would give me the most um relevant, I was going to say relatable, relevant experience. And so I would get technical in the first however many sentences and be like, this was my job, and this is what I did, and this is why it is helpful to you. And so this is why it's helpful to you. And also, this is why I enjoyed it. So, like, my paragraph about Wilder Things, which was a speculative magazine, was I really enjoyed being on a magazine that focused entirely on the speculative genre. So, like, I loved reading science fiction. I loved horror was my favorite, and Kirsten White works in that. So I said, I would so enjoyed being on this magazine because I love horror, and I think that I was able to bring a new eye to those submissions that not, people who weren't super into the guts and gore were, and also, why I love your imprint and what I think I could bring there. Because I noticed that you like Kirsten White, you have horror. I could make that better for you. And then I would do that for the next, I think I did, it was two or three. I'd focus on two or three experiences, depending on how much fit. And then the final paragraph would be the end of the story, which is that I think the fact that I love your imprint and what you do, and these experiences are why I think I would both fit in here and be useful to you. And that's kind of a not cold way of thinking about it, I guess, of like why I'd be useful. But that is what they're looking for, is what can you bring to the table? And that's kind of how I tried to tell it, which is be technical, be assertive about what skills were given from these experiences, but also how those skills relate to I realize I'm just telling you everything everyone else has told you about cover letters. But I think the main thing, what my dad said and what I'm trying to get at is that you start the story in the first paragraph. You're like, I love this. And that's emotion. Um, the first and last paragraphs are emotion. And then in between, you have one paragraph for each experience you had and you think is most important and you describe what it was, what your responsibilities were, and then in the last sentence, you say, "This is why it matters to you," like the person reading it, because I can bring these skills to your workplace and your team. And I think that that really helped because what I could do then was take the meat, middle three paragraphs and paste them into whatever I wanted. And then I could just change the end caps, the emotion part to fit whatever I wanted, and I'd be like control F for whatever imprint and then change it. But it definitely allowed me to do the copy paste thing without feeling soulless. And hit a middle ground there. So I could apply to a lot of things without putting my entire everything into it and feeling exhausted after one application, which I used to do, and then I wouldn't get it, and I'd be crushed. But no, having that middle ground of like the technical aspects in the middle, and then you can just copy paste those however many times you want, and then you actually put the emotion in the first and last paragraphs really helped me kind of compartmentalize. Hopefully that helps.
No, that helped a lot. Thank you so much. Yeah, because I think I was just like, I've been doing that same thing, like it just getting so burnt out over one application. I'm like, I need to
Well,
do one a day and that's it. Maybe one a week. I can't. But
it's draining and yeah, we live in an environment like I don't know. I don't know if you guys are how many of you are close to graduation, how many of you are looking for jobs currently, but it's very exhausting and we live in a world that is on fire right now. And it was hard to find a job anytime, but now it is extra hard because you are just kind of getting by existing. So give yourself some slack and put your all into a job application, but also take care of yourself and try to make things as easy as possible. So it's okay to copy paste. Like it's it's okay to embellish. I think you just really should just don't do anything you can't back up. Like, don't put anything on your resume that you saved kittens from trees. And if someone asks you to save a kitten from a tree and you can't do it, that's a problem. But like, I don't know. Give yourself some slack, lie a little bit, have fun,
that's so
embellish.
real. No, thank you. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. So does anyone else have any other questions about application process? Any more about what her job looks like, publishing industry in general, about her as a person?
Oh, I'm not that exciting.
I don't know.
I will say, if none of you have any questions, which is fine, um, working in editorial is fantastic. But if you guys ever want to go to marketing, that is where you get cool book merch. Like when they make books, I have to beg marketing. I'm like, can you give me a hat, please? Because if you work in marketing, you get to make influencer boxes and you get to keep stuff from the influencer boxes. So plug for marketing if you ever want to do that. If editorial is not for you, there are options.
Okay. Want to open it up again if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, I will ask another question. When I tell you I have so many questions.
You're so good. I am happy to answer because another thing I found about working here is that everything is so opaque, right? Like so much that I think being at Iowa, being in the publishing track, it gave me the skills I would need to do this job. Like those skills I definitely tap into. I was not prepared at all for what it actually looks like. People would start whipping around words. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, a CIS and SAP, and we do TIs and like a TK." And I'm like, "What the hell does that mean?" Because I just think that, yeah, so don't feel bad if you don't know what all of this stuff means, because I think it is a frustratingly opaque industry. So yeah, ask as many questions as you want, even if they seem really silly, because I still ask questions, and I've been here a year, and people who have been here 5 years still ask questions. And sometimes I know the answers because things are just constantly changing. So yeah,
Cool.
I'm happy to answer.
Well, in that case, I was wondering, what did I know you're like still learning and stuff, but like what did the initial like training process or whatever, like onboarding look like for you?
Trial by fire was really the situation. I asked this question when I was interviewing because one of my problems with my older job was that the onboarding process was so boring. Like I knew everything by week one, but they wouldn't let me put any of that learning to use. Here, they're just like, go have fun. Like you have a 3 hour HR like onboarding. They tell you about your benefits, and then like go and start doing things for your editor like right now. So it's just one of those things where, and again, I had trouble. The same thing with a work-life balance is that I had trouble asking for help because I felt like I should have already known it. And you don't. There's absolutely no possible way you could know what half of this stuff means. So you need to ask a ton of questions. You need to find people that you are comfortable asking questions with. Like my first month here, I was scared to ask anyone a question except for this one editor. Poor man. Like I was scared to ask anyone else a question, so I would come to him for everything. I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like can you teach me how to do this?" And eventually I branched out, but it's just you need to find someone that you can ask questions with, and then you slowly branch out. And for me, it was like I could only ask one person questions. Some people they can ask anyone a question, anyone who's available. But you need to be comfortable bothering people because most of the time they're not actually bothered. Like anytime anyone comes to ask me a question, I'm like, yes, I know something. Um, so it's a trial by fire process in that there are some things like there are occasionally uh learning sessions or whatever that you can sign up for where someone in like the legal department will run you through what each part of a contract means or what was recently? Yeah, someone will run you through what an acquisitions it's called a P&L. It's a profit and loss sheet. And it's like, that's another one of my jobs where I go, hypothetically, if we were to buy this book for this much money and it were to sell this many copies, this is how much money we make. And that is how we kind of determine how much we want to spend on the book, and how big we think it could be. And there was a set training session where some of the finance people walked, you could just hop onto the call and they would walk you through it. That happened 6 months after I started. So unfortunately, it doesn't happen right away. You don't get all the tools. You just have to be really comfortable asking questions and you're going to be very confused, and that's okay. My bosses, they were like, you just, Hillary would say, "Can you do this for me?" And I'd go, "What's this? What are you giving me?" And so that's why it is very important to start off knowing that you're going to be confused. You're going to feel like a rookie for so long, and like that's just how it is. Everyone feels like a rookie. People have started later than me and they still know me, know certain things that I don't. So it's definitely you learn what's necessary to do the thing you need to do that day, and you go, yeah, I learned something. And then the next day you have to learn something new. Um, and it's very daunting, but it's also very fun because it helps you make friends. Like most of my friends that I've made here have been because I went like, how do I do this? And they're like, I don't know. And so together we had to go find someone else. And sometimes it would literally be a posse of four people trying to find someone who knew what they were doing. So yeah, it's trial by fire. You do not get a instruction manual. You kind of have to poke around, which is daunting, but it's fun. So
Yeah, that I wasn't expecting that honestly, but that's good to know. Um, thank you for letting me know that I will just always be confused.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, you walk around in a certain percentage of confusion, and the percentage is always there. Sometimes it's smaller and sometimes it's bigger, but you are never not confused, just a little bit.
real. Okay. Does anyone have like any last questions for Elsa? We are running up on time, but
Honestly, that last comment kind of reminds me of an internship that I had a long time ago at a literary agency.
Oh, agencies, those scare me.
But um, is everyone here on LinkedIn or so we can keep in touch?
oh yeah, if everyone wants to put your LinkedIn in the chat, like a link to it or um whatever, that would be great. I'll go grab mine real quick.
I don't know my list. Hold on.
Just go into LinkedIn and grab the link.
Okay. I have,
And I have to, unfortunately, I have to go to work now, but thank you so much for
oh my
this. I really
gosh.
enjoyed it. And have a good one. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Have fun at work or good luck, whichever is most applicable.
Yeah, and while we're doing this, Elsa, if you wanted to talk a little bit about maybe just your favorite part of your job or maybe I don't know, the specific imprint you're at or just anything you want to talk about.
Oh. I could talk all day about the things I do. I think my favorite part is getting today. I'm in charge of ordering the finished copies, the final copies of a book, and those come in, they hit the warehouse like 19 days before the actual book goes on sale. So like obviously the bookstores have the books before they go on sale. And which means we also have the books before they go on sale. And today you'll get a box and it'll come to your desk and you'll be like, oh my God. And you'll put the box on your desk and you'll take scissors and fold them like a heathen, which I was informed I should just use a box cutter, but I don't have one. So I open the scissors and I rip it open and you open the box and it's a book. Like it is a book that you helped bring into the world because, like I flip through it and I'm like, I made that title page. I made that copyright page. It's so boring, but here it is in my hands. And if I feel like that and I didn't even write the thing, imagining how an author feels when they have that book, especially the debut author who this has never happened to before. When they get that book before it's on sale, it's just this tiny little piece of themselves that they can hold before anyone else does. And I helped get it there, whether I was actually involved in the editing process or if I came in, like I came in the latter half of a lot of projects, and still I was able to send that little book. And so it's just a really fantastic feeling that even when I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to answer this email, I don't want to do this, it's worth it because I pick up that book and know that I put it there. It's just very rewarding. Like I'm not curing cancer or anything, but it's important, I think. It's important to me. Now let's find my LinkedIn. It's in the last page of my phone in a folder called Fear because, yeah,
That's so
I
funny.
can I send this in an email to you later and you can give it to everyone? I don't
Wait, you
want
know
you to
what?
watch
No,
me.
wait. I got you. I can probably access your LinkedIn faster than you can
That's embarrassing, but true.
because I
Because
literally just searched you up before this. So here, I got this.
my sparse LinkedIn for my intro that, yeah, no, I'm really
Here's
bad.
Elsa's, guys.
It's me. Yeah, unfortunately, and that is my other advocation for advocacy. I work in publishing. I know what words mean. But like, yeah, no, my LinkedIn is horrendous. I didn't have a LinkedIn until I had to do it for a class in Iowa. So, like, I mean, yes, these things are all very important, and doing certain things on LinkedIn and being really great at it definitely helps you. It definitely got a lot of people a lot farther than I am right now, but it also is not a deal breaker. And I was scared that it was for a very long time. But now I have a job I want and I don't have to worry about LinkedIn. I mean, I do because I need to make connections, but it's
Work in
hard.
progress.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but we are out of time now, but thank you so much for coming and talking with us. I know
Yeah, of
I
course.
learned a lot. And yeah, it was great having you.
Thank you for inviting me. I really hope that I could help, and I'm glad that I did. Yay!
Yay! Yeah, well, thank you all for coming and have a wonderful week and good luck with applications.
Yeah.